tough. But he could have used Ben Roethlisberger too. That would have been, my youngest son just got that recently. Got the names mixed up and, back to the quarterback. So anyway.
Well, good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for coming in with us.
My pleasure.
I know it's a little bit more relaxed than what you're used to, but it probably feels a little bit better to sit down and actually eat a meal at one of these events, right?
Well, I think right now everyone's, happy. They may not be happy with the results, but we had a great election and people have kind of moved on because this is what it is. And so we've kind of moved on too. We are working on the next big thing.
Well, we're excited to get to know. So for all of you who I have met, it's very good to see you again. For those who haven't, my name is Britt. I work here with Buckhead Club, and every once in a while Jeff lets me have the microphone, so I try to use it for some good. Now, while the club maintains a neutral party status to all matters, we really love inviting our elected leaders in, and especially people that we consider, hometown heroes. So glad to have you. What we'd love to do this morning is get to know you a little bit better. We'll, of course, talk about the election, but we really want to get to know what your office and your team and you are excited about the year ahead, and then what else do you do other than the election, because we know there's so many things that your office touches. So we'll go over a few of the talking points and questions that we've gathered from our members and the audience, and then we'll open it up to a little bit of a Q&A, which is the most fun, so I'm excited about that. So let's start with something we can all identify with, and that's your morning routine. What do you do when you get up in the morning? What time do you get up? What are you having for breakfast?
It depends. If I have a 7:30 meeting down in Buckhead.
Which you beat me to. I pulled in this morning. I was like, is that the secretary? I rolled up my window. I was like, are you here at 7?
Well, I think one thing I learned, people said, oh, traffic was bad. Traffic's going to be bad every day. And so just build that into it. Well, Siri, she's a wonderful woman. And so when you're looking at your, how long it's going to take, well, yeah, that's right now. But as you get on 400, or now you get on 141, add 10 minutes and add 15 minutes. But it really depends on what we have. So we'll be in session next month, and I'll be down at the Capitol probably virtually every morning early just to beat the traffic. And that's kind of how we start the day. I was talking to someone, and really when you're in business world and you own your own business, you want to start most of your meetings early in the morning. So you have a 7 o'clock breakfast with someone, done by 8 o'clock, in the office by 8:30, and then you can work the rest of the day. That way you're really not taking away from family time. So it's really that work-life balance. And when you have your own business, there's sometimes not a lot of balance, particularly younger in your career.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. So let's jump into the first question that we have, and it's really more of a talking point for you too. So feel free to go anywhere you like, but let's go ahead and just address the elephant in the room, and that is the last election and this election. So the question that we got, and I'm going to read it verbatim since it was submitted. Reflecting on 2020, what lessons did you draw from the challenges, and how did these experiences shape your strategy and success in the recent election?
Well, after 2020, everyone needs to be aware, and anyone still has any questions about 2020, it was free and fair, and it was accurate. The only thing it wasn't fast. But what we really decided is we had been working on, and I really ran it back in 2018, even though you're in the State House, and I know when you're in some of the rural areas, everyone knows who their state rep is, but in Johns Creek, no one really knows who the state rep is because no one really is paying attention to what happens there. They probably know their council member more than their state rep. So I ran, I said, hey, I'm Brad Raffensperger, I'm running for Secretary of State to make sure that only American citizens vote in our elections. So that's really been near and dear to my heart since day one. And so I knew we needed to get new voting machines, which we did. I knew we needed to join a multi-state organization to share voter lists so we could really track people's mobility as they moved around the country. Did you move out of Georgia, or did you move to Georgia, so we have a clean voter list? All those kind of things we were working on. And we were ready for 2020, and then we had the 2020 results. As a Republican, I think all of us were surprised that all of a sudden you take it for granted, and it just didn't happen. It's like all of a sudden, little Johnny, little Susie, they've been getting straight A's all the way through. Then they hit their senior year of high school and they're not getting straight A's. What happened here? And so that was kind of a shock to our system. But at the end of the day, it was an accurate result. And what we've worked on since then is I'm taking away everyone's excuse. Any area that you could say, well, what about this, what about that? We squeezed everything out. We have now photo ID for absentee voting with SB 202. That was really important. Really, we followed what Minnesota had been doing for years, because everyone virtually has some kind of identification. So we put that in there, that added security, but also added confidence in that. Interestingly enough, only about 4% of people voted with absentee this last cycle, versus 24% that voted back in 2020. And yet almost 80%, 77% of the people voted early. Number two, long lines. If we had long lines, guess whose fault it was? It was the counties. But guess who got all the blowback? I'm getting that monkey off my back. There's a great book if you ever want to read it, The Care and Feeding of Monkeys. And as a business owner, you're going to learn that you have to hold people accountable. So with SB 202, we had an accountability measure to hold them accountable. We also put into state law recently that lines have to be shorter than 1 hour. We think that's really important. But we just didn't make it a mandate, put it into law. We then worked with the counties. Guys, let's look at your precincts. How many machines do you have? How many people do you have? What's your throughput per hour? And we just kind of, gave them a big Excel spreadsheet, county by county, and they could see which precincts works, which one they're going to have trouble with, so they could bust the precincts in half, add additional equipment, figure that all out. And they did a great job of making sure they worked on those lines. The average wait time in this last election was actually 3 minutes. The UGA poll just came out, 80.8% of all Georgians waited less than 10 minutes in line. And we think that was a big victory, short lines. And then the other thing we just put in this last year with SB 189 is that all that early voting, which was actually 77%, all that 4% of absentee voting and early voting was, I think I said that wrong, but 77% early, 4% absentee. But that's 80% of your votes had to be uploaded by 8 p.m. So here you are sitting at home watching your TV, and all of a sudden it just rolled up. But you can start kind of seeing where it's going, but also it wasn't going to be like Philadelphia and Detroit, wait until 3 a.m. And that's when we started free, fair, and fast. And then, to stop all this kind of discussion, all this stuff, that people were saying that the QR codes were not reading accurate, we went ahead and we got the funding from the General Assembly. They gave us $5 million. We brought it in for under $2 million. So talk about efficient. Doge lives here in the Secretary of State's office. I'm a contractor, and so low bidder got it. We got this up. It actually read the human readable text on all the paper ballots. Now, who did you want for president? And we did every single race. This is the first time this has ever been done in America, not just the top to the ticket, up and down the line. All 5 million ballots with a QR code, there was 0 errors. Machines were 100% accurate. Now, someone did do a write-in, and so there was that one ballot there that they just got it wrong, but that was just one race on one ballot out of 5 million. Now, on those hand-marked paper ballots for absentee, we had 87 errors. 87 errors out of about 279,000 total. Extrapolate that out, if all 5.3 million ballots would have been done with the hand-marked paper ballots, which is what all these activists wanted, we would have had almost 1,700 errors. Bush v. Gore, 2,000, 400 votes. So we made sure we had accurate results. And so I was just wanted to make sure we dialed it in tight. And we called it, I called the governor at 10:30 on election night, told him, hey, here's what the results are. And he was excited about that. And so he knew he wasn't going to be getting any of those kind of calls, except congratulations, great job you did, Governor. And he was out there with the state party, and we were continuing on till about 1 o'clock, 1:30, as we just kind of wrapped up the night. But that's kind of what we've done last 4 years. We've been kind of busy. And I do want to give a shout out to my team there. Here right now, I have Robert Centers here, looking at his phone. He's our communication guy. Liz Hausman, Chief of Staff. And Charlene McGowan, she's our general counsel. So Charlene gets a lot of lawsuits. And we get sued by everyone. After 18, we got sued by Stacey Abrams and all those folks. 2020, we got sued by Republicans, all my friends, were suing us. After 2022, we didn't get too many because I guess they pretty much knew that we had it dialed in pretty tight. And we always had it dialed in as people didn't like the results. UGA did a poll, by the way, and over 90% of all people trusted the results. What's really a little bit frustrating, but maybe not unexpected, is over about 94% of all Republicans now trusted the results, but only about 88% of all Democrats. And I think sometimes, just because your person didn't win, you can still trust the system. And in this job, I am a Republican, but when you're Secretary of State in the election space, that's when you realize this election's for everyone, and your job is just walk the line right down the middle, make sure it's free, fair, fast, accurate for everyone. And I think we've done a great job at that. I think we're really the national model.
I love it. Do you think you'll get more Christmas cards than lawsuits this year?
I've gotten a few so far, Christmas cards, that is. We haven't really seen too many, but there's never a perfect election. But that's about as close as you can get. And that UGA poll also had 98% of all voters gave our election workers a tremendous shout out. And what they really see is the forward-facing, front-facing people, the poll workers. And if you know anyone that's a poll worker, just thank them for what they did, because they did a great job.
And your office shared that report with me, so if any of the members would like to see that, I'm happy to share that with you. Just let me know after this, and I can shoot you an email with it. It's really great stuff. It is a lot of numbers, so it's not something that I wanted to dive into today, especially after all the information you've shared. But what I would like to segue into is taking all of those challenges, right, in the course of everything that you were going through the last election, this one, you navigated a lot of public scrutiny. So I wanted to read this question and get your take on how did you navigate opposition within your own party and maintain the resilience under the public eye? So how did you handle all of this adversity and really use it as a platform to propel you to such success, right? I would say you were truly successful in this round.
Well, after we had the 2020 race, and you get through that, and we got through session, but when I talked to Republicans, and so it was really important that we did that. And so I looked, was there a county Republican Party meeting? Was there a Tea Party meeting? Was there chamber meetings, a Rotary meeting? Because typically when you get out in the rural areas, Rotarians are just wonderful people all over the world, and no matter where you are, but there's going to be more Republicans in a Rotary meeting out in the rural area because there's more Republicans out there. And so it's really just to share that information. And then the ones that did have questions, because they're Rotarians, they're very respectful, chamber folks are too, but it's really give people the facts, but also that they become your ambassadors to go out there and talk to other people in the community. But I think at the end of the day, you have to come out and talk to people. Years ago, actually in the book Profiles in Courage, Senator Norris, and he was, I believe, from Nebraska, he came back to his hometown because the press was just running him down like crazy, and he said, "I've come home to tell you the truth." And they were there coming out almost with pitchforks and and nooses because they just were so mad about everything. And he just did a little talk. And after they were done, all the people went home and they could understand why he did what he did. And he got reelected and served for many more years. But it really just means you got to talk to people. And I think that's about having the courage to stand up. And we had the facts on our side. And if people gave us 5 minutes, I think they'd start seeing it. It doesn't mean you're going to like the results. I was surprised too. I've been a conservative all my life. But the facts are the facts. And so I think it's always important that you just deal with people, but I also think you deal with them respectfully. You don't call people names. I just don't think that's helpful. I think when you hold elected office, you need to hold yourself to a high standard.
I would agree. And communication really is key. Pick up the phone, the text message, the email, it all can be such a mess when 5 minutes on a phone could probably solve half of our problems, right? So take that lesson with you today. Just pick up the phone and call somebody. Well, looking ahead, because we've got 2025 right around the corner, what are you most excited about in the upcoming year? Is it getting back to work on all the other things that have had to take the back seat, or is it just shifting gears?
Well, even though we were dealing with elections, we've done several things. One is I passed a bill when I was in the State House that you could renew your corporation for up to 3 years, 1, 2, or 3 years. We implemented that very quickly back in 2019. But also we really have started working on 2 years ago. We had a licensing reform commission that I formed, and I brought in 4 reps and 4 senators, bipartisan from both political parties, and then talked to the various, the Georgia Chamber, Atlanta Chamber, and the Savannah Chamber, brought them in about what does it look like to do licensing reform. And then after this last session, we tried to get some things done. We had some, I guess, they weren't even big lifts. We got some of it, but not all of it, because this is kind of a new aha for their members. So they went ahead and they formed a bi-chamber commission, and they just met out there in Athens at the biennial, and a lot of their takeaways was, do we really need to have this thing licensed? There's this one license here, there's only 20 people in the entire state of Georgia. And there's about 6 or 7 licenses that have less than 20 people that actually have that license. Do we really need that? And we really have to look at licensing reform. I think you can make a case that it's actually a moral imperative. Because if you create barriers for people for entry, or a barrier to get a license, they've done the coursework, they've done all their continuing education, we have to make sure that we can get that to them quickly. I do think we have to take a look at, I guess you call craft workers, and that middle level, but then also you have the professional industries, like the engineers, the architects, the nurses. Well, they make this kind of money, but some of the folks are down at this $50,000 to $70,000 range. What you don't want to do is hurt them with all the continuing education costs that you have. As a structural engineer, I just did 24 hours over the Thanksgiving week. That was a lot of fun, but you find the time to do that. But it's one thing when I pay it, because we're engineers are here. But does a hairdresser or a barber need to do that every 2 years? Can we do that every 4 years? So we want to really, do a deep dive into licensing reform, and I think that really fits in a lot what the push of the governor is, and I really feel the sense of the General Assembly. I think that's going to be, have bipartisan acceptance, and that'll be our big issue. And that's really part of, I think, what you're seeing, nationally, is how do we deregulate everything? And I think that would really be good for the state of Georgia.
Wonderful. Can you talk a little bit more, too, about your online systems and the application? I remember during the Politically Georgia event, you were checking your phone on the application that you all have developed, which gave y'all really real-time data. And I know you developed that system, and you're using it for all applications within the Secretary of State's office. So can you tell us more about what you're using that technology to do, forward thinking?
Well, we really built a lot off the Salesforce back home, and then we get our individual companies that are actually doing the specialized. So we have that for elections, and going back to elections, we have the data hub. I just love that because we did the electronic poll pads. So we had some technology in this, but it's still a people business. But then we also had the data hub, and I went to that several times during the day, so you could see who was voting early, and then election night, it was all right there. Then for licensing now, we moved that off of the old paper system. Now we have a double authentication system, and that was a new thing for a lot of folks. It's not for us because we get that all the time because there's bad people out there that want to hack into our systems. But we now have a system, and we're trying to really streamline it. We did some of the licenses. We have 140 different licenses, 40 different boards, and so we started with this group, get that working smooth, and then expanded it out. And we now have a new director that came from the Amazon and call center background, so he really understands how to handle, and he's really a Salesforce expert, so he understands how you do things like that, and we really just further improved and streamlined that. At the end of the day, what I would say, I think what we're already doing in our office is what DOJ is trying to do at the federal level, and every business owner does it every day. But our measure is taxpayer dollars. Is how do we be efficient with taxpayer dollars? Y'all work hard for your money, and you want to get maximum value. You don't mind paying taxes. You want roads. You want public safety. You want all these things, but you really want return on investment. You really want it done efficiently. And so I think we want to be responsive. And so I'm just really excited where we are. So that is really an online system we have now. And then if you have any hiccups, and I hear about, hey, I did my license back in October, it's sitting there. And some of them, those special situations. And recently it was getting a plumber his license. He had something that didn't happen about plumbing, but you can't have any kind of violations, totally unrelated, and you have to kind of explain what happened there. And so we worked through that to expedite and make sure he got his license. So those are the kind of things we do. And if I handed out my card, but if you have anyone that needs to, corporations or professional licensing, reach out to us. If there's a roadblock there, we like to, bust down the door, make sure your friend gets their license as quickly as possible.
Wonderful. Well, I know we've talked about a lot of different types of industry and jobs, which is a great segue to open it up to the audience for question and answers. You game for that?
Yep.
Okay. So we'd love to hear from you anything that you heard today that you have a question about, or it might be something, I know we have a lot of business owners in here, people at corporate level, all levels. So we welcome your questions. If you'll just raise your hand, I'm happy to come over to you. We'd love to hear your name, what your industry is, and then of course what your question is. So don't be shy. I'll start calling you out and you know it.
Excellent. If you can stand up.
Sure. Good morning. Al Uzinski, Inside Lighting, a trade magazine in the lighting industry. I came here today thinking it was Breakfast with Santa. This was way better, so thank you. With the political climate affecting commerce in various states, famously we had a Major League Baseball situation here years ago, which I imagine wasn't the only business venture that was affected by shifting climates and other things. What is the risk moving forward as you see it with Georgia turning purple and other things impacting business other than just finance and business?
I really think that Georgia decided, it probably always wanted to be pro-business, but somewhere, I think around in the 60s somehow, the chamber, the business community, and really just average citizens, they wanted to make a turn and they wanted to be pro-business. Because they understood what being pro-business, what you really were being pro-middle America, pro-Georgia. You want people to have more opportunities. You want your kids to be able to stay here after they go to college, if they go to college, but whatever that is, they just don't leave because they have to go to other spots. And so Georgia's been pro-business for many years, and we had that, and yes, the Republicans have had the governorship since 2000 and 2002. But at the end of the day, the General Assembly is pro-business. They understand that we want to make sure our climate is favorable towards business, because business can plant their operation wherever they want to. So it's about attracting new businesses, but then also growing the ones you do have. The one thing that is really exciting to see, the more entrepreneurial we can be, and entrepreneurship is really good. I think Silicon Valley, unfortunately it's in California, it's not here, but they've been very entrepreneurial. And where we can encourage that spark of entrepreneurship, I think that's a good thing. We want people to think that they can be the next big thing. Because what it does, it's great for them. I get that. But it's also great for all their employees. And then all those employees have more money. And then they have more, it's better for their families. And it's a virtuous cycle upwards. And that's good for the entire state.
Wonderful. Who's next? Charles Ritter.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Secretary, thank you. Charles Ritter with the Buckhead Business Association. So kind of two questions. The first would be, as you're kind of looking at the department and providing efficient solutions, what do you think is the most surprising result you've had, like when implementing efficient solutions? And then the second is, when you have a uncharted territory before you, for example, one of the items potentially in the next legislative session is sports betting. And I would imagine or hope that if that were to come to fruition, that licensing becomes some sort of part in that. So with something uncharted, how would you look at kind of a new territory to build something out with efficiency?
Well, what I'm really excited about is when Governor Kemp, left. Obviously, he took some people with him, and then he left a few, thank goodness, and he left our former general counsel because we had all those lawsuits, so that was a good thing. But in my business world, we really, after many years of building my business, and I was the hunter, I was the chief engineer, I was the estimator, I was the everything. bit by bit, I started getting, my son came on board, my middle son came on board, Kyle, and first of all, he started running a division, and then he got more responsibility. When he became Secretary of State, he became president. But what really happened is we started to develop more of a strong team concept, and it wasn't just words, it really was the team, and really it just took our company to the next level. And I brought that concept to the Secretary of State's office, and we empowered people for all the different divisions we have. So we have corporations, professional licensing, elections, securities, and charities. And we have the Georgia Boxing Commission. So who knows, maybe we get gambling too. But at the end of the day, by the way, when the General Assembly doesn't know where to put something, we somehow get it. But probably one of the most pleasant surprises is securities and charities. This lady, Nuala Zaharis, who had been running securities and charities, she's a former school teacher, and she just dove into the securities business. But what happened, because she's a teacher, she just had a passion for financial education. And so she said, well, I'd like to do these financial education programs. I'd like to start off with this program called She Leads, for financial empowerment of female entrepreneurs. And we looked at it and we said, go for it. So we empowered her. We didn't micromanage her, and she developed this program. We had over 200 people, 250 people show up at the first one here inside 285 off of the Claremont Road. It was at a church, and Chick-fil-A helped put some money towards having biscuits, things like that. But just a tremendous program. And so now it's expanded. We have financial empowerment for high school students, veterans, retirees, and just expanded like that. And so really when you empower people, empower the team, you hold them accountable, but at the end of the day, it becomes their project, their passion. And I think that's probably one of the things that I really have seen in our office, is really taking that whole team concept. And that's really what the federal government needs to do. I think that people want to do well, but sometimes they need a focus, and sometimes they need to have some freedom to do that. But then you have to hold them accountable, make sure it's a good return on investment. And actually with the securities division, it doesn't cost the taxpayer of Georgians anything. And the reason is that these bad actors that do things that get big fines, it goes into a big money pot, and then we make an application for grants, and that's what funds it. And so it's been a tremendous program. If you look at the updated literature we have, it started out being English only, now it's in Spanish, and we're looking, maybe we need some other languages, but we're really getting some good deliverables that are going alongside with this. But I think that's just a great example. But when I look at what Todd's done with professional licensing, we've empowered him. We look at what we've done with IT. We just have strong leaders at all these different levels. Look at Charlene. She came from the Attorney General's office, Assistant Attorney General. She comes into this. She still had some of that post-2020 stuff that she had to take care of. 2022 was a little bit quieter, but she's just seen a lot of different things. But we've empowered our team. We don't micromanage them, and it's just really been working well. And that would probably be my best takeaway for anyone that's starting a business, particularly young folks, if I was going to mentor them, is empower your team. Find good folks, make sure that you sit down with them and do that. My son was really probably one of the best at that.
Well, that's all the time that we have questions for, except for one, and save the best for last. It is a little political and it can be a little dicey, but I hope you'll indulge me. So, we would all love to know if you like pineapple on your pizza.
No, I'm just kind of a typical meat and potatoes kind of guy, so pepperoni, we can do a little bit of mushrooms and other things like that, but not the Hawaii deal, sorry.
Where do you get your best slice in town?
I'd probably say Crust up in Alpharetta, right off of Highway 9. Does a great job.
Well, thank you so much. We love having everybody here this morning. I'm sorry, Santa will be here tomorrow. You're going to have to come back. But Brad, thank you so much for coming, Mr. Secretary. It's been wonderful. Please, if you'd like, stick around. We'll have a little bit of time to network. We've got coffee, juice, water. If there's anything myself, Jeff, and the rest of the team can do, please let us know. And then if there's a question that you have, we have his office here, and we'd love to get you connected. So thank you so much for coming. And a round of applause for the Secretary of
The
best I could.
Very expeditious. Because I don't need Jay Davis and all the rest of the guys saying, where's the license? No, but the team does a very good job.
I will tell her right now she's letting the